Namaskar, a very warm welcome to the panel discussion one of day two of Indie Global Waste Management Summit. We had an amazing day one uh, yesterday with participation from policymakers, industry leaders, and innovators and technology experts from India across the country and beyond. And we had participation from Ministry of Environment, Government of India, Ministry of Jal Shakti, and several state governments, including Government of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Karnataka, and several other states who joined us from the policy, the government side, and also from the academia and industry. So this morning we had a very important session as a opening session for the day two that was on extended producers responsibility, which is one of the hot topics in the waste management these days. And now we are in the first panel discussion of the day, and that would be revolving around a very important session that is corporate social responsibility in waste management. And to do the honors, we have a very wonderful mix of speakers from the policy maker side, from the government side, and also from the academia and corporate side. First of all, I would like to call upon a very senior individual who has done amazing work, who comes with decades of experience. He is currently as the senior program director and with the Ministry of Environment and Forest. Earlier, he has worked with UNDP and several other international organizations that deal with environment. Please join me in welcoming none other than the senior officer, Mr. Prabdhotji, Dr. Prabdhot Singh Sodhi. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. From the policymaker side, I would like to call upon a very dynamic officer who has earlier headed the smart city Warangal, one of the smart cities of Telangana. And she also headed as the district collector Yadadri districts, one of the important districts of the state where one of the prominent temples of Telangana is situated and its development is underway and is one of the iconic places of the state of Telangana. Currently, she is heading as the director and commissioner for CDMA, that is Commissioner Directorate of Municipal Administration with Government of Telangana, Ms. Pamela Satpathy. Please join me in welcoming the officer from the state of Telangana. Welcome, Pamela ji. Thanks for joining us. On the corporate side, we have a representation, a senior officer with the Tech Mahindra. He is the global head business HR and has an experience in regards to waste management. He also collaborates and associates with the local municipal bodies that deals with the waste management. Please join me in welcoming the speaker from the corporate side, Mr. Vinay Agarwal, Global Head Business HR with the Tech Mahindra.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Vinay, for joining us.
Thank you.
We will also be joined by our experts from academia side, from IIT Madras. We have Professor Indumati Nambi, Professor Environment and Water Resource, Division Department of Civil Engineering. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor Indumati. We are also joined by yet another expert from the academia side, that is IIT Kharagpur, West Bengal. He is the Associate Professor, Rajiv Gandhi School of Intellectual Property Law, IIT Kharagpur. Join me in welcoming Dr. Uday Shankar.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Uday. With this, I would like to hand over this session to our moderator of this particular session, CSR in Waste Management, Mr. Vinay Agarwal. Over to you, Mr. Vinay.
Thank you very much, Sudhir, and very warm welcome to all the panelists. As Sudhir said that, delighted to have a very diverse panel, and in next 1 hour we'll probably make a best effort to connect those dots, give different perspectives on the subject. So I think without any further ado, I would request each panelist to take 4 5 minutes to talk about their perspective in general, and then we can have specific questions. So maybe we can start with Dr. Prabjot.
Thank you, Vinayji. Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure, Gautamji, Maheshji. Thank you for making us a part of this program. Just a few words about myself. I'm based out of Center for Environment Education, that is Kartikeya Sarabhai, is our director based out of Ahmedabad. And we are working on various projects, largely with the HDFC Bank financial support under their CSR. Now, and as he had already introduced, I was in various committees with the Government of India and NITI Aayog, social responsibility. And my first congratulations goes to the Government of India. This is probably the only country, Vinay would correct me that, only country which is mandated by law to have 2% of their profits to be used in a more systemic manner. And that's where the SOPs and the standard operating procedures and the guidelines were drafted by Government of India and introduced under CSR. So, CSR largely addresses four of temples, if I have to say, and every CSR company should really look into it. And having personally worked with CSR over the last 20 years, 25, when even it was not a mandated portfolio under the law. So I think so. What I have learned over experience is the 4 or 5 issues which the CSR has focused and the companies have focused is on, firstly, about fair trade practices. They really largely focus on that, how the people who are going to be given in a fair trade manner. The second point which always I've come through is with the climate change coming into action has been how these actions which we are doing are reducing carbon footprints. Now this is amalgamated and comes to Government of India, and Government of India really is trying to reduce the intensity under the INC issues. So the UN Convention on Climate Change. So I think so. Another thing which Government of India has brought very recently is of great significance, and the CSR is going to address that, is of the notification on the carbon green credit program. So this under see how the measurability of the actions are being done in order to mitigate this. The third factor which the CSR largely focuses on is environmental responsibility. So wherever they are giving the funds, they are trying to see that how the funds are being used in a way that the environment is taken care of, and supporting, of course, sustainable legislation across. But then there are 2 other social dimensions which the CSR brings forward very strongly. One is on the diversity. It can be, of course, diversity of people, diversity of cultures, biodiversity, which is also a UN convention there. Equality is another temple which they strongly focus on. And third, the inclusion. The inclusion of the very poor, how they can be benefited across within the realm of operations or actions whom they're dealing with under the CSR is helping them. So these investments which they are making under the CSR are very strongly looking into socially and environmentally conscious the way. So One more thing I would like, we are working on with many of these these companies called HDFC Bank, JK Paper, Bisleri, JSW, Dabur. C is worked with many other, which I'm not mentioning, but where I work very strongly, I'm mentioning those. So there, the experience has been that how can we addressing the inequalities? The issues also become, if I deal with plastics, we are trying to focus on to reimagine the way we produce, consume, and dispose plastic packaging. So each of us as companies will have to think about how we are producing plastics, whether that can be collected back easily, whether that is can be reused, it can be also refurbished easily. So these are the issues which we need to look through the producers' inventions. And the corporate CSR is putting the emphasis. The second point is all about the consumption. Consumption largely ends up with consumers, and we all are consumers in our ways of life and society. How we are consuming our product and disposing it off, whether we are littering it, whether we are burning it. So different stakeholders need to be impacted in and over can do responsibility under the CSR. The other issues in the CSR program, which are very strongly focused by most of the donors, through my experience, has been working with governments. And we have Pamela ji today with us on the panel, and I've been working with her. And she's been one of those, and I have this privilege, I would say, that she's one of those who is very proactive and very constructive. That forms the basis of a good CSR implementation. And of course, Vinay is there. We have worked with Indumati ji and Uday as well. I personally have run it, and institutions, not necessarily, it can be research academia, where we can test the systems. If we are introducing a particular product, suppose we are introducing paver blocks in plastics, how can their density, how is their inflammability, or how is their long life? So all these sort of testing needs to be done, and they are governed by BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, what their standards are and are we meeting them. So the convergence is another thing what the CSR is very strongly. So people think convergence only in a very small domain, and I'll sort of end up in a minute, is that cost or money is the convergence. Money is not the only convergence. Convergence is in knowledge, capacity building, access to information, and that's exactly leading to the last point which I want to make is traceability, transparency, and institution building. Everybody in the society is looking at traceability, transparency. Government of India in material consumptions have come up with EPR, extended producer responsibilities. So traceability, transparency is addressed through a better measurability, but that doesn't leave aside the basic fundamental of CSR, which is empowering through the actions, through the information. And of course, companies are also having their own thinking around that we need to have a better customer relationship or a visibility. But that's not the fundamental. The fundamentals are what I've just spoken with you, is on ethical, responsible, and convergence models where we can address the inequalities, social justice, inclusion of the unreached. I think so, Vinay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I'll close here.
Thank you very much from a very large perspective, policy perspective. Let me just move to Ms. Pamela. Do you want to share your experience and perspective from the municipality side?
Good afternoon to all the esteemed speakers. Special thanks to Sudhir ji, Vinay ji, and Manish ji for bringing me on board. And of course to Prabjot ji for his very generous appreciation. have been working in the municipal sector for almost this can be my second year, I can say, because prior to this I was not just smart city CEO. I was handling three assignments. So for I was also municipal commissioner, Greater Warangal Municipal Corporation. It has a population of almost 9.5 lakhs, and I was also the vice chairman, Urban Development Authority in Warangal. So, and from a municipal commissioner to a district administrator with 6 municipalities in the district, and now as commissioner and director of municipal administration with 141 ULBs, working together with them. So it's, I can say, it is more or less giving me the perspective that I should be having. And today, I would like to speak not as a DMA, but as a municipal commissioner. And because CSR, although it is always, it may or may not be initiated at the ULB level, mostly it is initiated at the higher levels, but it is the field perspective which matters. So, with that in mind, I just had jotted down few things. I mean, in CSR, we have a very good framework for mandating CSR, whether it is the Section 135 of the Indian Companies Act, which Mr. Prabjotji spoke about, the 2% mandate, or maybe the ISO 26000 framework, or the SDG 6, which talks about clean water and sanitation and the role of civil society in it. But it's not just the binding and non-binding part of the framework which makes CSR all the more crucial. And particularly when we talk about waste management, there is a lot of dichotomy when it comes to CSR, because waste management is not a one-time activity. It is not a tangibly defined activity. It is not something where you can put in the nameplate of the CSR, the agency carrying out the CSR, and showcase it all the more. Waste management is a recurring expenditure, it is a continuous activity. And if it is not so, it is not effective waste management. But when it comes to CSR, whenever we have our discussions with industry, with academia, with NGOs, with volunteers, with the private sector, it is, of course, it is always, as an individual or as an institution, we would like to do something and have that task bear our name, and that is where the dichotomy sinks in. I would just reiterate my experience as a municipal commissioner in Warangal, heading a huge sanitation task force. Today, I have a sanitation worker strength of almost 22,500, out of which there was a huge chunk of which was in Warangal. And that time, it was the first wave of COVID. I had companies come to me, literally force me to take face shields, hand sanitizers, oxygen concentrators, masks, all the same, and PPE. But what I needed that time was not these things, because that anyway was being provided by government, and we were anyway procuring it. What we needed at that time was waste management, more so help in disposing these PPE which were already won by citizens or by sanitation workers. And that is where literally we were clueless as to how to dispose the biohazardous and the biomedical waste, even the hospital waste. Even with India in mind, I cannot be sure that all the waste coming out of very prime hospitals, renowned hospitals, is treated end to end before it is just let out into the municipal waste chunk. And same can be said about industries as well. So the support that we need here is at that front, and that is for sure a recurring expenditure. So that is where I would like to draw everybody's attention to. And we also have a lot of good examples that I tried to accumulate here to share with all of you. For example, if we talking about HDFC Bank, they have funded a plastic waste recycling unit in Nirban and Mahbub Nagar municipalities. We have Green Yatra with Mr. Pradeep Tripathi, converting dump sites into urban forests. So forest is all the more special, and urban forest definitely a green lung space in the heart of a city is all the more special. We have ITC who help in setting up DRCC centers in Sirsila and Pirzadiguda municipalities. We have BITS Pilani establishing waste to power plants and with biomethanization technology. We have many NGOs that way who are working with waste management and circular economy. In CDMA office itself, we have a company called as a TrashCon. Basically, they specialize in manufacturing products out of recycled waste. So we have asked them to build office cabinets and shelves and all, trying to lead by example from our office itself. And right now we are also establishing a real-time waste monitoring system using technology such as very basic technology, QR code, geofencing, RIDF, and all. So it's a very simple thing, but like I said, it is a recurring expenditure. It is just like a maintenance cost. So the problem that companies express before us is that although we appreciate your concern that you want your help in this regard, we also need to showcase something tangible to our company. We cannot say we have worked for the health camp of sanitation workers, but we can say that we have given them sanitation kits and uniforms because that's tangible. They want, if they have more money and they're willing to set up FSTPs, that also we have very good fecal sludge treatment plants done up under CSR with Banka Bio and Tide Technocrats, running up and running since last 3 years. And we have good STPs as well, waste to energy plants as well. But that is when the company has a good amount to invest. What if the company has not so much amount at hand to invest in the ULB's waste management? That is where they go scot free. I mean, the kind of thing that they donate to us is not something that we really want to have. To redistribute it at the field level again becomes a concern sometimes. So when we talk about CSR, I think it is very pertinent to note that the ULB with which we are associating for the cause of CSR, we should first have a requirement analysis with that ULB itself or with the HOD, because sometimes the CSR that we provide from the industry side and the CSR that the ULB needs are very dichotomous, like they are polar opposites. So the requirement analysis and not just pumping in CSR but channelizing it in the right direction is something which I would definitely want to speak about through this platform. And there's a very it roots from psychology, I'll say. We want to do a visible CSR. Whether it is useful or functional or not is a secondary question. Sometimes we want to work with corporations and big corporations because that's where they can showcase us as partners. They can put our logo somewhere. But but the CSR, but the issue that we are addressing through the CSR component might as well be addressed by the corporation itself. They may, or you are not the sole benefactor for the ULB. But when we come to talk about tier 2 and tier 3 municipalities, which are newly formed municipalities, emerging, and nobody knows their name because till yesterday there were a bunch of local gram panchayats or nagar panchayats. And that is where and when we are assessing resource allocation, we always do based on population. Let us say 5,000 population, you get this much amount of funding. 10,000 population, you get this, and 5 lakhs, you get this. But more so in peri-urban areas where the expectations of the citizens is that they are nothing less than a bigger corporation. It is very difficult for a ULB to cater to the basic infra and civic amenities. And that's where the role of CSR is very, very critical. And that is where we should handhold smaller players when it comes to waste management. That is a third point I would like to make through this platform. And since I have a chance to make a few suggestions, I would also like to draw your attention to a few areas where CSR would be very good. Just like hand-holding smaller municipalities like tier 2 and tier 3 municipalities, or sometimes maybe bringing in citizen support. Like if you're working, I have seen two urban local bodies, two local bodies. One is a GP and one is a municipality. In a GP, if you address 5 things out of 10, you are considered to be a very good administrator. In a municipality, if you address 9 out of 10, you are considered not so great. So that's where bringing in a positive approach in the citizens' mindset, bringing community participation, and channelizing the manpower, especially through HR activities at just like we were discussing today morning, Vinayji, bringing in
Yeah.
people for a lake cleaning exercise, a heritage cleaning site, or making a plogging event very successful. I think these are very much essential, and more so at the smaller municipalities, because nobody is looking at them and you may be their sole benefactor. So why to pour into a cup which is already overflowing, is the point I'm trying to make. And talking about circular economy, we have DRCC centers. So what happens in these centers is basically waste collected, segregated waste collected from the household levels, is recycled and reused. 3R principles basically. These are generally run by our self-help group women, and I incidentally also am the state mission director for MIPMA, and I have a workforce of 1.7 lakh SHGs, basically 17 lakh odd women workforce, with whom I'm working. So these are the women who are working in these DRCC centers, but often they don't have the technological or the financial support to keep this best practice going. On one side we talk about user charges and administrative fees for collecting waste, but if you look at the percentage of collection, it is abysmally low. And also we cannot force it down the throat of a citizen saying that, see, we are collecting your waste, you pay us. You will not imagine, a bare minimum of even 60 rupees creates a lot of hangama. 60 rupees per month creates a lot of hangama at a smaller urban local body level. And they have a point to make. I don't blame the citizens there. They say, we pay you for taking our garbage, but what does your sanitation vehicle do? They dump it in our adjacent gully or lane. So anyway, our surroundings are not clean. Cleaning our home is, so we might as well take that dustbin and dump it there ourselves. So why do we pay you? Because littering is still not a stringently penalized offense in our country. So there is very little incentive, whether it is from the citizen's perspective or the officer's perspective or the sanitation worker's perspective, to make this a remunerative game. So that's where I think industry, academia, NGOs, and private sector collaboration will be very, very useful. So DRCC Center and promoting circular economy is the second such thing that I would like to suggest. And also, if in institution has good amount of money to invest, I think cleaning up heritage sites, restoring them because they are full of garbage, littered, cleaning up step wells, lakes, lake rejuvenation exercises, taking up STPs is another such thing which is very useful. Again, when it when it comes to talking about waste management, we talk about garbage free cities. What do? We remove the garbage vulnerable points. How do we do? I think we are not successful in doing that at all. We remove the dustbins. Removing dustbins is not the same as removing garbage vulnerable points. So basically, we just put up a lot of energy in cleaning every day those GBPs. So I think whether we deny or whether we accept, burning of municipal waste is something which has been happening all through, will continue to happen, because waste segregation is not perfect at the household site, at the Swachh Auto site, at the transfer station, and also at the dump site. And that's where, if there is a big player at hand, and if they can pilot for 2 or 3 wards of a big or small municipality, I think Nothing like it. Again, it is a recurring expenditure which has to go on, and a continued association of an industry with the ULB will be a very rewarding exercise, although costly, but will be a very rewarding exercise at the end of a decade or a half, because that is certain to bring in behavioral change in the urban local body as well as its citizens. So the point I was trying to make is bringing in incinerators, scientific incinerators to burn and dispose of waste at the ULB level is again a very useful CSR if we can look at it that way. So that is all I have to share. I think there's a lot more that we can do when we come together and synergize on the shared vision that we have. So best wishes to all. Looking forward to work with all of you sometime or the other. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Pamela. I think some very important point you made. So let's quickly move to Professor Indumati. If you want to share your perspective, please. She's she's an academician from IIT Madras. When you're on mute.
Thank you, Vinay, and the rest of the team who invited me for this August panel. Hearing from the other two speakers, it's really nice to see, heartening to see the breadth and depth of knowledge they have in the practical field. A lot of points have come out. From the academic side, we do work on a lot of technology solutions, both at the MTech, BTech, and PhD research. So some of the solutions which Ms. Pamala was looking at, biomedical waste management. So we have solutions, but the serious issue our country is facing is not enough translation of these solutions to the field. It just ends up as thesis and reports and papers. So with this frustration, which is there, which was building up in me, and also when I go to on the other side as a committee member, I sit in Greater Chennai Corporation, Central Pollution Control Board, and then you see the huge gap. There is a need for these solutions, and there are no technology providers. The government is looking at even bringing in people from outside the country, whereas we have a lot of expertise inside. So this gap has to be filled up. I strongly believe that indigenous technologies, we have the expertise. And how do we fill up this gap was the question I asked myself like 6 years ago. And then we started coming up with solutions for this. We started this program called Carbon Zero Challenge, which is basically looking at everything under the environment sector, technology transfer, technology translation from lab to market. So a lot of waste management technologies, water treatment technologies in a circular economy concept is what we are promoting. We support about 25 teams every year all over the country. We get about 500 applications, and then we go through a very strict scrutiny and come up with 25 teams whom we support, mentor, nurture until they are ready to go and become a startup. So this is how we are addressing this gap. And CSR funding has solely supported us in this endeavor, because this is something which we cannot go to like DST, DBT for funding. And Atal Innovation Mission and many other missions are only funding startups. So this pre-incubation idea to prototype or idea to POC to POV, proof of concept to proof of value, that is where the gap exists. And so I'm very, very happy to say in this forum that CSR funds from multiple IT industry actually have supported us in this venture. Virtusa and Thales, who are IT companies, have been supporting us year on year to nurture these young ideas coming from young minds into startup ideas. We have successful startups in the waste, water, energy, soil management coming out of this competition. That is one thing. So that's apart from building research technologies from research. academia should be the bridge in taking this research also to the market. And we look forward to support from corporates in future also, because it is quite a large funding which requires to support 25 teams. So if I have time, I want to show some of the success stories from this program. Can I present a few slides, Vinay?
Yeah. In 5 minutes, if you can do it, that'll be great.
Yeah. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, I think it's coming up. Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah. So, for example, IIT Madras has a very good ecosystem for
You want to put
entrepreneurship.
the slideshow mode? We'll be able to see a little larger. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
So we do have a very good in entrepreneurial ecosystem, as you might have heard already, with our research park, which incubates a lot of startups. But we work in the space of from idea to POC and POC to prototype, and then we train the team so that they become entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. Particularly in the environment side, they have to come up with their eco footprints, carbon footprint, water footprint, so that they can market their technology better. And then they go and incubate, and later on we get support from other. So Carbon Zero Challenge is right here in the pre-incubation space of IIT ecosystem. And we are focusing on circularity in resource conservation. How do we come up with low carbon solutions to promote resource conservation, recovery of waste, wealth from waste, and also in wastewater domains, and soil restoration. So we all know about the issues. I will not talk about it, and there is a huge potential. So the contest is not just a few days contest. It is a 1 year program, so it aligns with the academic program. We select teams, and then we mentor them. We screen them. Now select 25 teams from 500 teams, and this is going through a lot of shortlisting by experts. So this is something which venture capitalists and investors are worried about, investing in startups which are not being evaluated. So this program actually gives the solid startups which are evaluated by academicians, entrepreneurs, and industry people, who are actually going to be the stakeholders who are going to use, and even government. I would like to even get challenges from the government, like what Ms. Pamela was talking about. We get challenges from government, challenges from industry, and throw it open for the teams to come up with best solutions. And so judging is also done by several experts across the country. So what we end up is about, we try to give from 25 teams the best startup teams of five, which we support them to go and have a startup which can be incubated in either our incubator or any other incubator. So we have partnered with so many. Thales and Virtusa has been our big CSR supporters, and we have had interest from others also, and we would like to continue this journey. Some of our best teams were showcased in Delhi, then on World Environment Day. So this is our overall output. So we have supported, actually now it is 75. We recently completed one. So we have supported 75 prototypes, out of which we have about 12 pilots now, 9 startups, and they all got to get funding. Several patents were also coming out of these innovations, which were supported. So some of the key things in waste management area, successful startups I would like to showcase here is the one which is dealing with non-recyclable plastics, which includes the biomedical waste plastics, which ma'am was talking about. So the biggest problem with plastic is taking the plastics from the source to the actual processing center, because of the logistics, the huge volume, and the non availability of clean dry plastics. So this startup which has come out of Carbon Zero. They are looking at a decentralized zero emission pyrolysis system to convert plastic to fuel. They use a catalyst based system, and they have optimized the system to take care of all the issues current pyrolysis plants are facing. So it is actually no VOCs will be let out, and everything is converted into a either oil or a gas, which can be converted into a fuel, and also char, which can also be used as a fuel. So they are reporting a very good market. They have done a complete market analysis. So any ULB, like what we were talking in rural areas, very difficult to have small scale pyrolysis units. We do it at a block level. The proposed model is to have at a block level and source all the plastics from rural areas. But in urban areas, it can be easily set up in ward level. So about 2 to 5 tons per day capacity is what we are targeting, not very large plants because of the sourcing issues. So a lot of trials have been run in the pilot plant in IIT Madras. This is the schematic of the pyrolysis unit, and very good conversion ratios. We are getting oil from different types of plastics. So we get about 50 to 60% oil recovery. And if you look at uh, the property of the oil we are getting is very close to commercial diesel. This is pyrolysis oil and commercial diesel. So we get very similar properties. And so there is more details about our analysis. About 150 trials have been run in the small prototype, which was supported by the Carbon Zero Challenge. And yeah, huge in terms of impact, not only dealing with the plastic, it is a low carbon footprint solution compared to incineration. There is recovery, which is again bringing back the embodied energy of the crude oil into the system. Lot of pluses with this technology, and there's a huge market which the startup is willing to go and explore. So
Professor, this is really heartening to see that the innovation is resolving the problems which cannot be otherwise solved at such a large scale of a
mhm,
country. Thank you very much. I will come back to you
yeah,
for a specific question. Yeah.
thank you.
So I would request Professor Uday to share his perspective. So far we heard very complimentary views, policy view from Dr. Prabjeet, the administrative view from Ms. Pamela, the innovation technology side from Professor Indumati. Then let's look at the legal perspective from Professor Uday.
Yeah, good afternoon to all the panelists, and thanks for this opportunity and allowing me to share my thoughts with all the audiences. Uh, CSR indeed is a very revolutionary step, and as it has been said that it is made mandatory in India. So one has to look at CSR activities uh, in twofold perspective, I would say. One, what is being made mandatory is what corporates need to commit for. But then there is a another part of the CSR story is that how that mandatory element is to be committed is entirely for the corporate to take a call. Though the government has given an indicative list where the money is to be spent from that profit what they are earning. So how corporates needs to engage with the society is something which is to be left on the corporates to take a call, and possibly there where I believe is the success story lies when you look at the waste management issue, because the very fact that waste management is a complicated area because possibly to my understanding as the law deals with the subject, it is more of a top bottom approach, which to me is not a very doable or workable solution on the matter of waste management. It has to be bottom top approach, because if the waste is getting generated at my house, I would prefer to look for a solution which would be acceptable to me, and which is something which is coming from within me, not something which has been imposed. Possibly that is what is the challenge when it comes to waste management. For example, waste management rule says that let there be segregation at the source, but then do I have the necessary information about the segregation? uh, that is first question. And second question is that whether I have necessary infrastructure at place to do the segregation. So waste management is one area which to me to be effectively taken up only when we have a decentralized mechanism, and there where I believe urban local bodies can play an important role. In fact, it is the urban local bodies which has been doing a very vital work in waste management. But then I would put it this way, that let the waste management area be dealt by urban local bodies the way they wish, or the way it has been mandated for them, and let the corporate come up with their own innovative model to work in this sector, and let that innovative model, you know, be identified based on the local requirement. In fact, uh, one of the indicators set in CSR rule is also that we need to serve the local area. Though obviously with the uh, business model coming up these days, it's very difficult to identify local areas. But then when it comes to waste management, it is desirable to identify local areas so that there can be innovation which is very much aligned with the problem of the local area. That's what is needed. And good to see that there are innovation happening. What is needed is to commercialize that innovation, because unless and until intellectual property is commercialized, that intellectual property has no value. uh, so there are different ways of commercialization of IP. We know very well that, for example, commercialization can be directly done by the owner, it can be done through assignment, or it can be done through the licensing process, and it can be done through the business partnership as well. And then best part is that when you look at the law and legal scheme on non commercialization, you would agree that there are enough provisions given in the law which says that if law is not working for the people, for the society, then something it can be revoked. For example, section 85 of the patent act says that if the invention is which is patented is not available to the common public at a reasonable affordable price, that is something a good reason to revoke the patent. So we do have a law and legal system in place which uh, ensures that what is being innovated at the lab level should get to the market. Now what I would put it is that let this corporate responsibility in the matter of waste management be driven completely based on the local requirement first. Second, let the identification of the problem done by the corporates themselves instead of government bodies indicating or highlighting that what is the requirement. That is another important aspect to look at, because of the very fact that if corporates are identifying the problem, possibly there would be a better possibility, a better way of looking for the solution, instead of government bodies telling that okay, this is the problem and why don't you come up with a plan under your CSR model. So I would say let the corporate take a call. So CSR, I would put it, it is a mixture or a combination of both voluntary and involuntary mechanism. Involuntary here is that you have to commit that certain percentage of your net profit. Voluntary is that let the problem be identified by the corporate and let the solution be suggested by the corporate, and let there be a kind of segregation on the responsibility of the government bodies and of the corporates. Let us not mix it, otherwise the problem would happen that we will keep on looking at each other, and at the end of the day waste management would only be a matter of academic interest and it will not get translated into real action. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. So, from corporate perspective, I'll just take 2 minutes. So, I think there's a good convergence of different perspective and converging towards how the solution part, how this problem can be really sorted out. So, I think clearly comes out there's a socio-economic issue, and there's a huge element of local play. So, I think. Ms. Pamela also made the point, Professor Uda also made a point saying that the most important thing is that how do we look at what is a local issue and all the solution effort funding is, if directed towards that, the conversion of the whole effort and the money would give the best results. So from Tech Mahindra or corporate perspective, so we have Tech Mahindra Foundation, which is totally dedicated to CSR, and they have picked up the theme of employability and education. But yes, I think there are, all large companies have their foundation, their CSR funds, and of course, contributing towards the waste management would be, is a very strong message. The value to the society is very high. That certainly should be considered. The other part, I think some of the panelists talked about ISR, which is individual social responsibility. And I believe the Swachh Bharat, the whole idea was to basically make that behavioral change and make people conscious, saying that if each person really takes a responsibility in their individual space, the whole, I think, at source itself, this problem get reduced, and a huge element of behavior. So from that perspective, I think we strongly encourage our employees to participate in that. And as I was just catching up with um, Ms. Pamela, so there's very interesting initiative they have started, which is basically declaring one of the Sundays holiday for all the municipal workers, and let volunteers do the cleaning, and those volunteers will be recognized by the municipal workers. So it's a wonderful initiative, and I think all of us as citizens, and I will basically, various corporate forums I'm part of, I would do my best to basically propagate that message, saying that this is beautiful initiative. uh, so CSR, ISR is basically, I'm just making an addition of the ISR. CSR plus ISR, the local problem solving approach. If we do these three things, I think all the efforts can really translate to huge impact to the country. I will take it back to Dr. Prabjit. If you can take 2 minutes, you have a perspective also on the ISR. So let's pick that up and then see if we can have few minutes for the Q&A. You are on mute. Yeah, you have to unmute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Vinay, thank you very much for bringing this SR into the show, and which Sudhir and his team has put it together. I mean, you really touched Swachh Bharat Mission as a great example. I think so. This is one of the real champion examples where our awareness on how our actions affect our communities as a community of practice in whole, both, it needs to be seen how our actions and behavior address the community of practice problems and how we impact the community of practice problems. So it's a dichotomy there, but it is working hand in hand together. Each one of us is playing a role in building a society. Each one of us sitting here is is playing a role, and our actions and behaviors are determining the outputs. So it becomes very important to focus on our individual actions and behavior. You gave example, Pamela ji gave example, Dr. Nandi gave example, and Uday was also talking. So each one of us is putting the emphasis on that, but we have to also focus on, when we are doing individual, on the environmental, ethical, right-based empowerment, social and institutional, which is powerful. The whole Swachh Bharat mission is on social and institutional building, and that is leading to the economic development of the people, providing them jobs or increased incomes. We are working in 3 or 4 districts, as she said, through the HDFC support. We are working in Mehbubnagar and Nirmal, and plus other 10 cities as well in Guwahati or Bastar. And these are all tier 2 and tier 3 cities, Ganjam. So I think so. Translations of those thoughts into action, which was said, is so important. And entrepreneurial ecosystem, which was said, life program itself sets into the motion the green credit system, which is leading from individual to institution. So I think so. When we are having individual social responsibilities, companies are more interested how they are contributing towards a common goal. And fundamental point which everybody wants to say, when I was talking on reimagine the way we produce, consume, and dispose materials, is that people, planet, and profits go together. And NGOs can also do profits, even though they are non governmental organizations, but they can pay their employees well and create a reserve and surplus together. So, this people, planet, and profits, it means economic sustainability, and planet means environment, people means social and ethical institutional behavior, will lead to a successful way of working. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sudhir, we have a couple of minutes. If you can extend it by 2-3 minutes, we have 5 minutes for any Q&A from audience.
Yes, yes. So we have questions pouring in from the audience. I'll just read out them. Maybe any of the panelists could respond to that. The first is like CSR in local communities for grassroots development projects is the need today. It's a kind of statement. Another one is why not give impetus to make it mandatory for schools to partake in urban forestry? The third the third question is tie-ups with academia and industry is something that we are hearing for ages. Need to scale this up. Third question. The fourth is congratulations to IIT Madras for zero C. Another one. The women at DRCC centers are the unknown heroes. We need to pay them more. One more question. Can any speaker say in which area CSR is happening the most?
So, Ms. Pramila, you want to take this question, especially on the zero carbon side, DRCC workers,
Yeah.
and where you're seeing basically more traction of CSR in the waste management area.
Basically, I totally agree that they are unknown heroes. In fact, I forgot to add that we can also look at the gap funding when it comes to setting up circular economy. And not just DRCC centers, we can also have CSR partnership when it comes to composting and also in maintenance of public toilets. So like I was mentioning, the DRCC centers are mostly operated by the self-help group women. So what happens is generally the self-help group women are not on our payroll as such. They receive an honorarium. I think it's more or less the same with all state governments. So they receive regular honorariums every month, but they're not like a proper employees as such, not even outsourcing or contractual or any such obligation that way. So they are bound together by a resolution which defines them to be a part of, which identifies them to be a part of a SHG, and again they are associated with the MEPMA wing in the urban scenario especially. And what happens in a DRCC center is the more collection that they do and the more recycling that they do, uh, mm, depending on the quality of the waste segregation at each level, they can sell off their waste, and that's where they have an additional source of income irrespective of the honorarium that they receive. So they don't need to pay any ULB share or any administrative charges. And in 90 to 95% cases that I see, the place for running a DRCC center is also given free of cost to the self-help group women to operate it. Of course, I don't see it as a favor of any sort, because they are very critical to the health, hygiene, and well-being of a ULB. But there is no such mechanism as such to pay them more or pay them less. In fact, we are bound by our, rules in the government. So if CSR can come forward in hand-holding them and supporting them monetarily or any other incentive for that matter, they are very welcome to do so. In fact, as citizens, I would request every one of us, like I don't see, like I was just looking at the statistics that I had with respect to waste production and segregation uh, and waste going to DRCC centers. So, as citizens, I would request each one of us to have a good segregation at the household level itself. I think that is the primary requirement that a woman operating a DRCC center is looking at. That is more than any help. So, when I have nearly 4,000 metric tons of waste produced in a day. Out of that, we have in our state, only I was talking about this 141 ULBs, not GHMC area. We have only 164 DRCC centers. You look at this abysmal proportion. And only out of this 4,000 metric tons waste produced per day, 502 metric tons goes into a DRCC center. Another 733 metric tons of wet waste goes into composting. But even then, even as the DMA, I would think this is a very, very positive or rosy picture that is represented from our municipal commissioners. I think on the ground it will be way lesser than this. So this begins at home, not at a ULB level, because sanitation worker, sanitation auto, Swachh auto goes to each household. We have nearly 26 lakh households in our 141 ULBs apart from GHMC. So if household level waste segregation is done properly, I think that is the first remuneration that we can give to a DRCC center uh, and the women running it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So looking at the time, I'll just take a minute to wrap up. So very, I think, complimentary panel. So first of all, congratulations to the Indie Global for putting together this 2 days uh, conference event to get different minds from different fields to really make that information available. So as a country, we are basically surging very fast, and waste management is very important area. So from Swachh Bharat 2014 itself, this program was launched. It's a very complex one because it starts from it starts from each household to several things. So I think this 2 days conference itself demonstrates that we are serious about solving this problem. And what I think larger point came across from different panelists is that awareness is key, involvement of each household is key, funding, of course, is required. So from awareness to funding through CSR, the academia, innovation, startup, etc., very important, and we have heartening examples from IIT Madras, and the collaboration of all of us. So collaboration of corporates from CSR perspective, from engagement perspective, academia from innovation perspective, and involvement of all citizens. And basically, I think very importantly point made is collaboration at a very local level. So this is a very local problem. So while at large we can paint a picture, but the solution lies at a very local level, ULB level. So I see a lot of very useful information, experts' perspective, which came in this 1 hour discussion. A lot of takeaways for all of us, and I think from the questions, it is also evident that they found it relevant and it was thought stimulating. So I would thank all the panelists, the organizers, for this discussion. And personally, I'm sure that all of us have also taken, it has been very stimulating discussion, and we ourselves in our own area will further boost the effort towards making the waste management better for our society. Thank you very much. Sudhir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vinay, for wonderfully moderating this session. We could get a holistic perspective from all the esteemed panelists, and amazed to see the kind of solutions that are coming up from IIT Madras. I think there was a congratulations from the audience as well. And it was wonderful to hear Pamela ji once again, who played a very important role as a commissioner, Greater Warangal Municipal Corporation, Smart City Warangal, and she's taking ahead now as the director municipal administration, and also the corporate angle uh, put out by Vinay and Udayji also, and of course Prabjot Sodhiji also. As a token of appreciation from our side, we would like to present these certificates to our esteemed speakers. We shall go ahead first with our wonderful moderator, Mr. Vinay Agarwal, who is the global head business HR with Tech Mahindra.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, Vinayji, for joining us, for taking out time. And also to Pamela ji, who has taken out time out of her busy schedule. And this kind of participation is very important as they are the policy makers who are implementing things on ground. Thank you very much, Pamela ji. And next up, our speaker from Tamil Nadu, Madras, Professor Dr. Indumati. Thanks, for, madam, for joining us and giving out the work and solutions in IIT. And also to Dr. Uday Shankarji, thank you, sir, for sharing your perspective, insights, and the legal aspects of CSR. And of course, we missed out Dr. Prabjot Sodiji, but he has been a man with rich experience giving out those insights. Thank you very much, everyone. This is a virtual summit we hosted. I earlier organized certain waste management summits, but after launching Indie Global Media Network, this is the first one I wanted to map out the waste management summit, which is close to my heart. And next, a few months down the line, we'll be hosting a physical summit with all the stakeholders together, and of course, we'll take help of Pamela ji and other policymakers to join hands so that we can make it a huge success. And of course, the corporate and academia will be seeking their inputs as well. With this, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers and the audience for active participation and putting in those questions to our esteemed panel. With this, we will break we'll end this session and we'll be joining for the next session with esteemed speakers joining from across the country. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Sudhir. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Mr. Mehta.